To quote Frank Underwood, when money's coming your way, you don't ask questions. And Kirk Cousins did not ask many questions or wait around very long after being offered $20 million, the deal of a lifetime. It didn't take long either for the haters to come out of the woodwork, from foolish NFL GMs to foolish newsmen. Deflategate somehow still has not gone away. And all the while, other teams around the NFL are starting to release some big-name free agents. All this and more is coming at you right now on THS.
It's the hog style.
THS.
Yeah. You like that? I think THS is what I'm going to start doing.
Nice.
Yeah. Okay, so welcome back, everybody, and hello again. I've got Robbie and Steve with me, and of course this is Alex and not the smooth, deep voice of Sean Conti. So, guys...
I'm Sean Conti.
Guys, how are you doing? Happy Saturday morning to you.
It's like a you're not Ron.
No,
type thing,
I'm not
like
Ron.
Anchorman.
No, although I do have good Anchorman hair. I've always said that about myself.
Yes, it's very exquisite.
You guys aren't going to believe this. I've never seen Anchorman.
Actually, I don't believe that. I wouldn't believe
I'm not shocked.
It. Yeah. And I'm assuming, Steve, I just got to bring this up. You're the one who was saying Ghostbusters is overrated on our Twitter.
Ghostbusters is overrated, okay? It's a campy, silly movie. I mean, was it mildly entertaining for an hour and a half? Okay, is it worth seeing again? No. Is it worth a remake? Definitely not.
It's a reboot.
Is it a classic? Calling Ghostbusters calling Ghostbusters a classic is an insult to classics.
I'm pretty sure it's rated as one of the top 100 comedies of all time by AFI.
Well, whoever did that list is wrong.
AFI, I believe, did that.
Yeah,
What do
I
they
think
know?
it was in the 30s.
Just because they're the American Film Institute does not mean they know what they're talking about.
Speaking of knowing what we're talking about,
Yeah, let's get back on and let's get the one thing I really can't believe this is back in the news. Let's get it out of the way. Deflategate somehow back in the news, Steve. Can you quickly take us through this and not make me want to drive a nail through my head?
Well, this may take about 45 minutes because what I thought I'd do is give a detailed analysis of every argument that was made this week. Is that okay?
All right, where's my drill gun?
I'm logging off now. See you guys.
No. It's all that happened is that the appellate hearing happened this week. Okay.
Okay.
Oral arguments before a panel of three judges of. So you're going to interrupt me. You have to make the joke. The obvious.
This is
joke.
karma, Steve, for all the Jihad war jokes you made.
I still don't want jihad. Jihad scares me. Anyway, okay. Now I totally lost my train of thought. Oh yeah,
Oral
panel.
arguments.
Oral arguments, yeah. Oral arguments between the NFL and the NFLPA happened before a panel of three judges of the Second Circuit Court of Appeals. Now, if you recall what happened briefly is that the trial court judge ruled for the NFLPA / Brady and said that the NFL, they overturned the decision of the arbitrator and said that the NFL had overstepped its bounds in the punishment of Brady. So the appeal is the NFL's appeal of the trial court's decision to overturn the arbitrator. All I'm going to say about it, I didn't listen to it. It wasn't there. You can get a little sense of what direction a panel is leaning by the questions they ask. Mm-hmm. And appellate attorneys and trial attorneys know this. You can't get, it's not 100% accurate or anything like that. But you can kind of get a sense of it. And so some of the attorneys in the room Wednesday, I believe it was Wednesday, said that the questioning from the panel leaned kind of 2-to-1 towards the NFL side of things, and meaning that the panel might have been leaning more towards the concept that the trial court overstepped its bounds by overturning the arbitrator's decision, which is incidentally what I said in the beginning, about it, which is just so unusual, So in the end of it, I think what we look for here is probably before training camp, because the panel seemed to recognize the timing of it, expect a decision from the Court of Appeals, and it seems to be more likely than not that the appellate court may overturn the trial court's decision. That could be Well, and that could either
Wow.
be they could reverse and remand and send it back to the trial court for more consideration, or they could do what's called reverse and render and just render a decision and say, no, this is the new decision. And that if it kind of flows and follows, that could mean that the new decision could be uphold the arbitrator's decision, which was pro NFL.
Interesting.
So,
So a lot in the air, though. No,
Yeah.
not clear yet what could happen.
no.
I mean, I guess we'll just whenever they do have some kind of decision, we'll go over it then because
Yeah, there's not much more to say. It was just the point was the oral arguments happened. It seemed from the attorneys in the room that the panel favored the NFL.
Okay.
That's the news in summary.
Okay. All right.
Fun stuff.
That's all I want to spend on Tom Brady's balls ever again. Let's move on and let's talk about something. Let's talk about something that, the big news obviously this week. Kirk Cousins was offered the non-exclusive tag, and he went out and signed that thing about as quick as anybody's ever signed a tag in the history of the NFL. First, I want to get everyone's thoughts on, what happened. I mean, it's kind of what we all thought, right? That this was going to be the way it would go.
Yeah, it's a smart move because, he's basically protecting the team that if some team really wants Kirk Cousins and signs him to a deal, we get 2 first-round draft picks in return.
I was rooting for the transition tag because I never thought anybody would sign him to, a deal that big, and it's all. I think it just costs us another $2 million a year, basically.
Well,
So,
for 1
either
year.
way, I'm sorry. Yeah, what I say? 2
$2
years. I
million.
meant
You said
1
$2
year.
million a year, which would
$2 million for 1 year.
yeah.
Well,
which
I was calling for the franchise tag for a while, thinking that was the best way to go. Even if they don't reach a long-term deal, he still is on a 1-year contract to really kind of solidify, what kind of quarterback
prove
he
it.
is. Yeah.
Yeah. Prove it deal.
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you, and I also was thinking from a negotiating point of view, this is really the best
Bad.
for all sides.
No,
Well-
I don't think so.
Well, maybe not from Kirk's side, but I think from the team
No,
side.
I think from the Redskins side, it's bad. Because now what we have is a guy making $19.9 million a year. I'm concerned that the agent will say, well, now that's the baseline, of annual salary. We're not going to take a pay cut. Particularly if he plays. Imagine this. Imagine he doesn't. Bad Kirk doesn't return, but heroes, superhero Kirk doesn't either. And we have a guy who's who's good but not great, for a season.
Sure.
And so now, are we obligated to negotiate a long-term contract? And if so, is the agent going to say, well, is the agent going to use his $19 million salary as the baseline going forward for his, for his annual value of his package?
And of course, the risk
Salary.
is, if he does have another superb year,
then you are looking at
Yeah.
another $20 million a year long-term deal.
yeah, then the price
Yeah,
then
and-
the price bumps up.
Right.
Yeah, and remember McLuhan this week at well, I saw it this week at least. He did an interview and somebody asked him sort of that same question and he said, "Listen, we'd love to have him, but at the same time I'm not going to ruin the team financially for the sake of one player."
Sure. And
Now that may be a ploy, I don't know.
well, I mean, I think if you look at McLuhan and Bruce Allen's history, you can actually see that both of them are that kind of general manager. Bruce Allen's always been very frugal. He doesn't give out long-term deals, generally speaking. And McLuhan's teams have always been roughly the same way. So, there's a lot up in the air. I kind of thought this was inevitable, especially when we heard Kirk's his agent was playing a lot of hardball and wanting to mega deal. So, the thing that interests me more, frankly, about all this is the sudden reaction in the social media world, in the beat writer world, the opinion columnist world, and I want to touch on two things. One, a lot of opinions by reporters, Pro Football Talk, professional tweeters like Bomani Jones, ripping the Redskins for this deal right off the bat,
And the Ravens.
and that was the other one I wanted to get to, is the general manager of the Ravens did something pretty out of character, and that was he was openly critical of this kind of deal for Cousins. in the midst of them re-signing Flacco to another $44 million deal.
Well, look, you have to look at it from an objective perspective, and you have a franchise in the Redskins who've, by and large for the past 20 years have made mistake after mistake in player acquisition in general. And now what they did is they paid a guy to play devil's advocate here. Don't hate me out there in Hogstyle or THS land. What have we graduated to THS now? Anyway, we've gambled $20 million on a guy who, let's be honest, had about 7 good games in 4 years.
Yeah.
And everybody's excited, but we've been down this road before. We've seen another quarterback, who had about 7 good games.
Yeah. Very recently.
Very recently.
We've seen a quarterback win a Super Bowl and get a mega deal and played pretty subpar after that. And Joe Flacco.
And Joe Flacco, yeah. I'm sorry, Alex, but let's just say this about Joe Flacco. As we learned from the Cousins article we published, Joe Flacco's got about the worst contract in the NFL.
Well,
and I know he signed it. Yeah, I know he signed it. Just signed another extension, but prior to this year, it was about the worst contract in the NFL. And Robbie's right. He won a Super Bowl, but statistically, he wasn't. And he didn't perform at an elite level after that, and he got hurt.
Yeah, below 500 record after the Super Bowl for his career. I noticed Danny Rudy tweeted that out. He is like a 2-3 games below 500 record. They finished with, 5-6 wins this season? And I know he was hurt, but still.
He was out all year.
And they have a top 10 pick in the draft this year.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my point is here, so we have the Redskins who have no credibility throughout the NFL in terms of player acquisition, sign player to a $20 million deal as a result of excelling in 6 games or 7 games in which we didn't play anybody with a winning record.
Sure.
So that's the way the NFL looks at it, and it's hard to argue against that, except those of us who watched all the games know that he got better all year, and there's a reason to be hopeful.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the criticism from the Ravens that people are flipping out over the most, and I'm just going to read the quote that everyone's been highlighting from Ozzie Newsome, and that is that he said, "Joe is our quarterback. We're proud to be able to say that. Teams struggle with the quarterback position," and then he references Philly signing Sam Bradford and Washington having to put a franchise tag on Kirk Cousins are examples. They don't have the resume that Flacco has, and yada. Okay, I agree. They don't have the resume Flacco has. Well, Kirk doesn't. Sam Bradford's played as long as Flacco at this point and has very little to show for it. That's a different issue. I'd say Bradford now he's on his second team. There's a lot of stuff you can talk about there. But to say that they're struggling with the quarterback position in Washington at this point, I don't think is a fair assessment. Struggling with the negotiation, maybe, but not with the position.
Yeah, that's why I was kind of off put by it. I was like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
He may not have been, Tom Brady or Peyton Manning, but
actually, I would say his yardage and touchdowns puts him in a very below average Brady year at least.
No. Look at Brady, Manning. Those guys have far more accomplishments. Don't even compare. Cousins may get there. If we fast forward 5 years from now, fine.
Sure.
And he keeps doing. And if he can duplicate what he did in the last 6 or 7 games over the year and continue it in the years to come, yes. But Brady, these guys are guys that have done it for year after year. Manning, has a 96.5 career quarterback rating
over 2 decades. Yeah,
right. Brady has got 96.4. They're far more accomplished, than Cousins is. You cannot in any way compare Cousins to Brady, Manning, and the elite quarterbacks because he's just not. It is not one.
That is fair, but you can compare him to Joe Flacco.
Yeah,
if you look at his numbers, I believe his year this year is better than anything Joe Flacco's had in a single season.
Well, I just happen to have Joe Flacco.
Okay.
Career quarterback rating 84.7.
Very pedestrian.
Career completion percentage 60.9.
That's league average.
Yeah.
He's been to 0 Pro Bowls. He's never won He's never been an All Pro. He's never been the league MVP. The one thing he's done is he's won a whole lot of playoff games. And he has the Super Bowl.
Right.
84.7, it's a good it's an okay quarterback rating. But that's why I put Flacco in the good in my article. I put him in the good category, not elite.
And I'm working off memory here. An 84 quarterback rating puts him more along the lines of what Jason Campbell did for the Redskins in his 4 years, not in the Tom Brady house.
I mean, 20 years ago that would have been good. But it's just not the case in today's NFL.
Sure.
I just think it was unnecessary, and they got a lot more stuff to deal with than we do at the moment. We're sitting at a 21st overall pick, had a much better season than they did.
Yep.
So I mean, they won a Super Bowl a couple years ago, but what have you done lately?
Well, it's worry about the Ravens.
Yeah, worry about
Don't worry
yourselves.
about us.
And by the way, I don't think it's a coincidence that he targeted the quarterbacks from the teams right north of him and right south of him. It speaks so much to what we always. And I don't know if, Steve, you have dealt with this lately, but the Baltimore inferiority complex.
Well, yeah, when I lived in the D.C. area, I always thought there was a massive inferiority complex coming out of Baltimore, and it was very one-sided. It seemed to me that people of the Washington, D.C. area don't care one way or another about Baltimore, and Baltimore just hates everything about D.C. Is that still the case? That's what I thought.
I think more or less people in D.C. are finally starting to take notice of all this, especially once baseball came back. That really added some fuel to the fire. To actually make it a bit more two-sided because of, and we don't want to get into this, the whole Nationals-Orioles TV broadcast thing, that really kind of kicked it off for D.C.
Well, I think another part of it is that the Ravens for years have been trying to intrude into the Redskins market
That's true
share.
Too.
They want to. I think if you gave the Ravens president and GM truth serum, they'd say they want all of Maryland to be Ravens territory.
Yep,
that may be kind of a subtle dig at, the Ravens, the Cousins quote may be kind of a subtle dig at that. Maybe.
But having lived in Philly for 4 years, it also goes north. The Baltimore anti-Philly thing. Philly doesn't care at all. Philly thinks they're rivals with New York.
Which they aren't. But.
Yeah.
Well, they're not. No, but just to mention, Baltimore. I've always said Baltimore wishes it was. Baltimore is Philly, but less nice, and wishes it was DC. That's how I've always kind of looked at Baltimore. But I want to move on to the other issue, which is owners, or not owners. Sorry, I want to move on to the other issue, which is news outlets criticizing the whole Kirk Cousins situation, particularly that Pro Football Talk article about Cousins holding out for camp possibly as part of a negotiating tactic. And Stephen, you and I think, differ on our opinions on this. I don't like this ever as a tactic. I'm a man who, I believe a lot in, you should be a man of your word. If you signed a deal, you should show up to camp.
Absolutely.
So I guess that means that teams should always honor the contract and not.
I believe that. I do believe it should work both ways too, and I know
but
it doesn't.
That's not the way it works.
Yeah.
I think you and I differed on the article, Alex. And I thought first of all, let's just say that Mike Florio hates the Redskins.
Oh, Mike Florio hates everything.
Yeah,
he especially hates the Redskins.
Yeah, but I think he
he's
wakes up in
biased
the
against
morning.
our
He's
team.
like the Grinch. He wakes up in the morning, and I think he's in West Virginia on some mountaintop, just looking around the world, going.
I hate the
really in
NFL.
Is he really in West Virginia? Is he actually in West Virginia?
I'm sorry. I don't know.
Is he actually in? Okay, because it would very much fit, I think, if he was. But I think all he was saying, I don't think he was saying Kirk Cousins should do this necessarily. I think he was just pointing out correctly that if there's leverage to be had, that's it. And he's right. That is the only leverage Cousins has now. I think that's all he was saying, and it's, and he's right. He wasn't reporting that Cousins was going to do it. He was saying, Cousins, if you want a long-term contract, hold out. And he's not wrong. That's what I thought.
Well, I would counter that with, I don't think Cousins will do this. I don't think that's the style of player or athlete he is.
No.
It just doesn't strike me as his personality. But then I also thought that the team would have negotiated a long-term contract with him pretty quickly, so I was wrong about that. I
told you that wasn't going to happen, though, Al. I told you guys that it wasn't going to be quick, and nobody listened to me.
Well, I mean,
nobody ever listens.
I realized pretty quickly that it was going to be more drawn out like this, and it was going to end up with a franchise tag, which is why when that story came out, I didn't care at all. I was like, franchise tag, knew it. Great.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think anybody should have been surprised by that.
No.
But people are still obviously shocked.
What I was surprised at is that Cousins signed it so fast.
Yeah, because
It was like that same day almost, wasn't it?
it's my understanding that once you sign it, the team or no team can talk to him.
Well, yeah. I mean, the tender offer is out there, which means he could have gone
To someone else.
negotiate with other teams. That once he signs it, it's a contract and it's done.
Right, he can't
You know,
talk to
now,
other teams.
Yeah. Now the CBA says that the team can negotiate a long-term deal with them up through July 15th of 2016.
Yep.
And then after that, he's playing on the tag for the year, no matter what.
It just shows that, I mean, yes, the contract negotiations aren't going as well as you thought they would, but he still wants to be there. You know, he doesn't want to leave Washington. I mean,
No, I always thought that was the case. I didn't think he really ever wanted to go play for Cleveland or.
Who would want to go play for Cleveland?
Well, I have no idea, but I'm just throwing a name out there of a quarterback needy team.
And the contracts are going, negotiations are going exactly and precisely as they were going to go. It was never going to happen immediately,
and
never.
it was rocky between the Seahawks and Russell Wilson too. I mean, it took a long time before they finally reached a deal. It wasn't just
Right.
because Russell wanted to go where he'll get paid more. It's just it's just contract talk.
At
It
this
takes a while.
point, I suspect what we're going to see is this is going to be the contract until about week 8 of the season. This is just my guess that, by about mid-season, the team will figure out either this is the real Cousins or not, and that'll be when they bring talks back and work out a long-term deal.
He may not want to do it during the year. A lot of players don't want to negotiate
Maybe
during
true.
the
Maybe
year.
true. But I would suspect that's when talks at least will start up again between the agent and the team.
If I had to
Cousins
bet-
might not want to do it, but Steve, agents will still talk to the team.
If I had to guess or predict when they'll get it done, I'm going to say they get it done before the draft.
Okay.
That's my prediction. They get it done like a couple days before the draft starts.
I think if it gets done, it'll happen right before the July 15th deadline because that's just how things go.
Probably.
Okay. All right. Well, let's move on since, a bunch of people signed some tags, franchise tags and what have you. But there are also a couple of big names that were let go from their teams. And so do you guys want to move on? I know, Steve, you said you kind of had a list of some names that were released and some people who still aren't signed with their teams.
Yeah, well, first, I think we would be negligent in not mentioning that the team tendered Will Compton a contract and Chris Thompson a contract
And Tress Way. Yep.
Yeah. And so those three guys will be back next year no matter what. Compton and Thompson are exclusive rights, restricted free agents, which means, are exclusive rights free agents, which means the team has the rights, period. And so Compton and Thompson, they either play for us or they retire, and that's it.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So those three guys will be back, which is good. Because
Yeah.
I know, Robbie, you still love Will Compton, right?
I like all three guys. I mean, Chris Thompson, he brings a lot of speed to our running back spot.
Something we kind of need.
He's that change of pace guy and Jay Gruden loves him. I mean, Chris Thompson stuck around not just because he's a talented player, but Jay Gruden has always raved about Chris Thompson. So
Yeah, he has.
Right.
Even when the rest of us are going, what the heck?
yeah.
Well, Chris Thompson is that guy. You hand him the ball 3 times, and he might get you a 20-yard game, one of those 3. So,
Well, he's kind of a modern-day Brian Mitchell,
A little bit.
Sort of the role he's trying to fill. And he's not ever going to be that talented, but
No.
that's kind of the role.
Yeah, that's his role.
But yeah, Alex, I do have a list of all the unrestricted free agents. So I think let's just hit running backs, since we're talking about it.
okay, that's a good place to start because I think
it's-
there's one of the biggest names that was released was a running back today or this week.
Well, you're talking Lamar Miller, right?
Well, that and
He wasn't released.
he wasn't
He was-
released.
His contract. I think his contract expired, if I recall.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And
Yeah.
didn't the Texans let go of Forrester?
Release Arian Foster.
Or Foster? Yeah.
Yes. Obviously, look, I mean, it seems to be not unlikely, less likely than not, that Alfred Morris is coming back. So the question is, what do we do at running back? I'll just rattle off a whole bunch of names and see what you guys think. These are the big-time bigger name running backs. Matt Asiata from the Vikings, Monte Vol, Patriots, Joique Bell, Lions, LeGarrette Blount, the Patriots, Ahmad Bradshaw, Bryce Brown, Donald Brown, Reggie Bush, Travaris Cadet, Lance Dunbar, Matt Forte, Arian Foster, Tim Hightower, Chris Ivory, Fred Jackson, Steven Jackson, Doug Martin, Lamar Miller,
Chris Johnson.
Chris Johnson, yeah, I skipped over him. Pierre Thomas, obviously, is a free agent again. James Starks with the Packers. Robert Turbin with the Cowboys. Chris Polk with the Texans. Ronnie Hillman with the Broncos. Do we sign any of those guys? Should we sign any of those guys?
If I had to guess, if there's any guy from this list that we'd sign, it'd probably be James Starks.
Interesting. What makes you say Starks?
He's the same type of back that Gruden likes. He can catch. He's not the most fast running back you'll have back there, but he's one of those does it all type backs, but he's not great at it. Does everything well, but not one thing great.
A jack of all trades.
Jack of all trades, and he's
got decent.
And he gets, he makes plays. He carried a lot of the load last year when Eddie Lacy was, too fat and unable to do a lot for the Packers.
It looks like Eddie Lacy's on P90X now, by the way. Did you see that?
Yeah, he has slimmed down.
He lost weight.
Yeah.
He looked like a big bowling ball before. James Starks has got good career stats. He's, 4.3 yards per carry, over 6 seasons. He's got, 106 receptions. 9 touchdowns. He averaged 4.1 yards per carry last year.
Okay,
he might be a good signing.
The sexy signing would be Lamar Miller, though. He's quicker. He's the home run hit type guy. He's not a strictly change of pace guy. He can play every down, but he's just a lot faster than what we have other than Chris Thompson.
You know what? I hear you, but I think Scott McGowan is never going to pay that much money.
No, I agree. That's why I said he's the sexy pick, quote unquote.
Yeah. So, the question really, it seems to me, is the team going to sign no one, roll with Matt Jones and Chris Thompson and
Silas Redd,
Mac Brown or Silas Redd, or are we going to sign somebody, or are they going to draft somebody? I, personally, if it were up to me, I think Matt Jones needs to be replaced as the lead back. To me, he's not a lead back, and they need somebody else.
I lean towards the draft myself.
I think it's almost a guarantee we'll draft one.
Yeah, I think look towards our 3rd or 4th round pick, possibly being a running back.
I'd love him to take Zeke Elliott right in the first round. That dude has got talent.
I wouldn't mind that if he's there.
Don't be surprised if he takes Derrick Henry. If he's there,
he's got talent.
If he's still there in the 2nd round, that's a very valuable pick there. You know?
You think Derrick Henry's going to get to the 2nd round?
It's possible. I mean, he's not. He's not the same level as a running back as Zeke, but he's huge. He runs a 4.40 at 247 pounds.
He's the kind of running back I dream of. The big boy.
He's a mountain running the ball.
Right. How big is he really?
He's 6'3", 247.
Yeah.
So he's as big a back as you'll ever find.
Yeah, he's bigger than Matt Jones.
Cam
if you can
Newton as
believe
a running back, basically.
And he's faster than Matt Jones, too, if he's running a 4.4.
Yeah,
he is.
Also, frankly, at least in mock drafts and stuff, it looks like there will be a lot of good value picks in the late rounds in terms of depth at running back. There's like this guy from TCU whose name I see keep popping up, and
Josh Ferguson. They talked to him at the Senior Bowl that week.
Yeah, so I think that you'll see plenty of options in the draft, and let's be honest, you don't want to pay a running back with tread on the tires if you don't have to out of free agency.
Big contract.
That's the way the world works now at running back.
A name that's been tossed around free agency wise is Matt Forte as a possible guy for the Redskins.
I don't like it.
How old is Matt Forte now?
He's at least 31 now, isn't he?
Yeah, he'll be 31 or 32 now.
He can catch the ball. That's the pro, I guess, of Forte, right?
He's been a very quiet, great running back for the Bears, throughout his career, but.
I'd rather bring Pierre back, though, if we're going to get a washed-up old running back.
Yeah, someone that's already been
there.
They're going
to bring. Well, you know who's a free agent now? I'll throw an interesting dark horse name out there. Tim Hightower. Tim Hightower had a research.
Tim Hightower's still around?
Yeah.
Tim Hightower had a pretty good year last year for the Saints. He was kind of one of the Saints' lead backs.
Interesting.
He has come back and is an NFL player again.
Huh.
It's good for him, though.
Yeah, he's a local boy. I'm not going to say, that I'm mad about it, but, kind of surprised.
What about
Oh, I think everybody.
Sorry,
Huh?
go ahead, Steve. Go ahead, Steve. You're good.
No. I just said, I'm happy for him. I'm
Yeah.
glad he's back. I always liked Tim Hightower. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, what about receivers? What are we looking at for free agency there?
All right, I'm gonna rattle off a bunch of names. Jason Avant with the Chiefs, Josh Bellamy with the Bears, Travis Benjamin with the Browns, Anquan Bolden, Andre Caldwell, Marcus Colston, Riley Cooper, no thanks, Malcolm Floyd, Brandon Gibson, Leonard Hankerson. Again,
Let's bring back Leonard.
Yeah, let's not. Let's say we did. Percy Harvin, Darius Hayward-Bay, Andre Johnson now got released this week. Marvin Jones with the Bengals, Jermaine Kearse with the Seahawks, Ricardo Lockett is a free agent, Lance Moore with the Lions, free agent, Hakeem Nicks with the Giants, Terrell Pryor, who's trying to transition into a wide receiver, is out there. Ruben Randall, Mohamed Sanu with the Bengals, I think is an interesting name. Brandon Tate with the Bengals, Nick Toon with the now Los Angeles Rams.
He's not a cartoon.
Yeah, he's a Nicktoon. Wes Welker is a free agent again. Kyle Williams with the Broncos. Any of those names intrigue you, Robbie?
Malcolm Floyd jumped out to me, but he's old.
Expensive.
And
he's going to be big money, right?
Yeah, his profile page on NFL.com says he's 34 years old, but he's got that size that you want. He's 6'5", 225. He would have been a nice big target for us. But the name that does stick out to me, other than Mohamed Sanu, is
that's who rang the bell for me.
Jermaine Kearse from Seattle. That's Seattle guy. McLuhan knows him very well. I mean, he's not a outstanding playmaker, but he's been solid for the Seahawks and been a reliable target for Russell Wilson. I think he'd be somebody to keep an eye on.
Well, let's talk about Jermaine Kearse. 6'1", 209. He's only 26 years old. Just finished his 4th season. He has 112 receptions in 4 years, and he's averaging 14.3 yards per reception. Last year was his best year, 49 receptions, which is the most ever. Started 16 games.
Yeah.
5 touchdowns. So he may want more money just because he's from Seattle, perhaps, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But he wasn't their number one receiver by any stretch of the imagination.
Right.
It's, my only knock against him is, he's only 6'1".
Yeah.
I'd like to see us sign somebody, 6'3", if we're going to sign somebody. Yeah, we really need that.
Well, Mohamed Sanu's 6'2", but he's a pretty good athlete. He can jump, but still not tall enough.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you Mohamed Sanu's details here in a second. Yeah, he's 6'2", 210. Going into his 5th season, just finished his 4th season. He's got 152 receptions, 11.8 yards per reception. He didn't start last year.
He didn't?
No, he only started, according to NFL.com, he only started 4 games last year.
Huh.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Well, I think we do have a need at guard. What about guards?
Yeah, I mean, I would say if you're listing the needs we might want to plug up in free agency.
Well, number one, first of all, also we need a quarterback. Right now we have 2 quarterbacks signed. We have Robert Griffin on a contract.
He's
going to be gone in a couple days. And then we have Cousins. Mm-hmm. We'll get to guards in a second. You want to just run through quarterbacks real fast?
I want to say there was that hilarious tweet by Rosenthal or NFL.com. I can't remember who it was.
It was Rosenthal.
Yeah, well, I think it was through NFL.com saying that the Redskins are one of the teams pursuing Nick Foles as a backup quarterback.
What a joke.
Yeah.
That's just downright ridiculous. I mean,
nuts.
Seriously. It's just, it's nuts. Okay, but anyway, I mean, obviously we've had Colt McCoy, as our backup, but he's a free agent. So here's the names. And get ready, get your air sickness bags out because it's an ugly list. It's awful. This is another reason why, we ought to be glad we have Cousins because there aren't too many good options out there. Matt Castle, Jimmy Clausen, Kellen Clemens, Chase Daniel, Ryan Fitzpatrick, Matt Flynn, Josh Freeman, Bruce Gradkowski, Matt Hasselbeck, Travaris Jackson, Josh Johnson, Thad Lewis, Ryan Lindley, Luke McCown, Colt McCoy, Matt Moore, Dan Orlovsky, Brock Osweiler, Matt Schaub, Drew Stanton, Scott Tolzien, Mike Vick, Joe Webb, Brandon Whedon, Charlie Whitehurst, T.J. Yates, and Matt Flynn.
Jeez.
Yuck.
I mean, Fitzpatrick had a great year. I mean, him and Osweiler, I guess, are the most interesting of the list.
Right. Yeah.
But
I think the Broncos made an offer to Osweiler, though, didn't they?
I think they did.
thought
I
saw
don't know
that,
if it's
yeah.
a tag of any kind, but
And the Jets
No.
are going to bring back Fitzpatrick, though.
Yeah.
I think they really liked what he did for them.
So
He's
in a
not
list
coming to
of
us as
very
a
average
backup.
quarterbacks, the top two are already probably going to still be on the same team, which means Robert Griffin will be the best free agent quarterback there is.
Without a doubt.
Although a name that to keep an eye on that I've heard a lot of buzz about recently is Chase Daniel. A lot of people have been saying that he's kind of ready to take over, kind of like pull a what's his name, Tyrod Taylor type thing, come in.
Except
and just,
Chase Daniel's, I think, getting to 30 at this point. A
Yeah,
little
Chase
different.
Daniel's getting up there.
he is. He's 29.
Look,
Yeah.
this is one of these things that I think the public is not going to. The public, and us, we are not going to be able to properly evaluate Chase Daniel because we just haven't seen the guy play.
No. It's been
He's only been in practice. He's thrown 77 pass attempts
in his career.
since 2000, in his entire career since 2009.
Yep.
So he was here for a brief period of time.
Yeah,
I don't
his
think
rookie season, he was on our practice squad.
Yeah. He was liked well enough, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
But I haven't seen him enough to know whether he's good or not good.
Well,
I don't know what to say about him.
we're talking about a guy who started out as a practice squad fodder. He's working his way. I appreciate that kind of story. A guy who's just kept at it and worked his way up the ranks in the NFL. Made a nice little chunk of change for himself doing it, by the way. I think I
being
saw
a
on
career
Spotrac
backup.
once. Yeah, backup quarterback. He's made like $10 million.
His body's probably healthier than most quarterbacks.
Yeah.
And he's learned behind Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Yeah. You learn behind Drew Brees, Alex Smith. Those are good guys to learn behind.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, very
Yeah, for
different
sure.
types of quarterbacks, but still, you can learn something from, watching them play.
A point here is, it seems to me that, unless McCoy is just sick and tired of being here or something, I think he's probably the most logical guy to just return again as our second,
Probably.
as our second string quarterback, and then we draft somebody to be our practice squad arm, third string guy, be it Dowdy I mentioned the other day or somebody else. It seems like that's none of these other guys do I want.
No, me neither.
Castle, Clausen,
Nope.
Cullen Clemens. Good God, yuck.
It's
great.
what? Frankly, when I look at most of the free agents so far this year, none of them are like must-haves for us.
A lot of them don't want.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so that's quarterbacks.
Yeah, let's.
You want to do guards, Robbie? I'll read.
Yeah,
Yes.
I think guards is
out
probably
for
the
you.
last spot we really might look at in
And
free
center.
agency on offense.
Guard and centers, and we'll have to rely on Robbie because you're going to be the one that knows these names far better than us. Okay, Jeff Adams with the Texans, Jeff Allen with the Chiefs, Zane Beatles, Jaguars, Mackenzie Bernadow with the Cowboys, Alex Boone, 49ers, Brandon Brooks, Texans, Chris Chester, our old friend with the Falcons, no thanks.
Nope.
Willie Colon, Jets, Tyrone Green with the Panthers, Vladimir Ducasse,
Let's take
Bears,
him just so we can have a Vladimir on the team.
Vladimir.
Yes.
Vladimir Ducasse, Jahari Evans, Ramon Foster with the Steelers, Michael Harris, Vikings, Richie Incognito with the Bills, Ted Larson, Cardinals, Ronald Leary, Cowboys, Joe Looney, Titans, Lance Lewis, Colts, Evan Mathis, Broncos, Jock McClendon, Dolphins, Jamon Meredith, Titans, Brandon Mosley, Giants, Manny Ramirez, Lions, Kalechi Osmeli with the Ravens, Austin Pastor, Browns, Jeff Schwartz, Giants, Amini Salatolu with the Panthers, Shelly Smith with the Dolphins, J.R. Sweezy, Johnny Troutman, Marcus Webb, and Ryan Wendell with the Patriots. Those are our guards. I don't know, Alex.
Yeah, none of that impressed me.
None of that.
By the way,
no.
I don't know if the audience could hear it, but Robbie's dog just went nuts, so he ran off to put the dog outside.
Right as we needed Robbie's O-line expertise, he disappears and leaves the show.
Right. I mean, there were
I
a
can
couple
tell you who I
names there
don't
who.
want. I can tell you. Let's talk about who we don't. We don't want Richie Incognito.
No,
right?
no. I would say,
because-
sadly, he's probably one of the better options out there.
Yeah,
and
but you know what? I mean, this city
no,
in
couldn't handle
this
it.
area is not one that needs another racial incident.
No, no. You put him and Riley Cooper somewhere deep in like some small southern city, and they'll be okay.
You know, we have a predominantly African American city.
Right.
I don't think they're going to appreciate Rich Incognito here. And if you read, I read the whole entire report on the Incognito incident. It was because that's just me.
It was messed
lawyer
up.
me. It was really, really ugly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we don't want him.
No, there were a couple names like Alex Boone, but I just worry these guys are all getting up there, right? Alex Boone's in his 30s, right?
A lot of these guys are. Yeah. Okay, Robbie, did you hear the whole list? I'm not reading it again.
Yeah, I heard it all. I really like
Who do you think?
Asemele, or whatever his name is, Kelechi Asemele from the Ravens.
Okay.
He's a very good guard. He's a mauling run blocker. Not the best in pass pro, but he can move people in the running game. He's really good.
So is he kind of like a? It sounds a little bit
He'll be
like what we have on the other side with Sheriff. A little bit.
He'll be a pricey guard to pick up, though. I don't know if he's even going to be on the market. I would think
how
the
pricey
Ravens.
how pricey is a guard really going to be?
I mean,
they can get up there. They can get up to the $5-6 million range easily, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, but he's not an All-Pro. I mean, he's not. He hasn't even
Free
been to
agents
a
are
Pro
premium,
Bowl.
man. That's why so many teams avoid free agency.
Yeah.
He's a bit under the radar, but he's very good. Jari Evans has been a consistently very good guard for the Saints. It's surprising to see him hitting the market. Yeah, he's a little older now, I guess. J.R. Sweezy is an interesting guard from the Seahawks too. I think he's not the best. He's a bit of an overachiever type guard or player. He's not the most talented or skilled, but he is mean and nasty and just plays aggressively and wins that way.
Well, and he's got the Seahawks connection too.
That too, yeah. A name to keep an eye on at least.
Yeah. Centers. We need a center.
Yeah, I would say
not a lot
center
of
more than a
centers on the
guard at
market.
this point. So
There's only a few center names, so I'm just going to read them all here. Tim Bars with the now Los Angeles Rams. Barnes, not Bars. Tony Bergstrom with the Raiders. Gino Gradkowski, Falcons. Lemuel Jean-Pierre with the Seahawks. Ben Jones, Texans. Doug Legursky, Steelers. Josh Laribas is a free agent. Our friend Josh Laribas.
Yeah.
Alex Mack with the Browns. David Molk with the Eagles. Will Montgomery, who we know with the Bears. No thanks. Dallas Reynolds, Giants. Lyle Sendline with the Cardinals. Fernando Velasco, Panthers. J.D. Walton with the Chargers. And Stefan Wisniewski with the Jaguars. He's got to be 180 years old at this point.
I mean, is Alex Mack the biggest name there? Am I right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, without a doubt. Yeah.
And
big name, big number. He's going to be big money.
Yeah. And by the way, I looked it up. The highest paid guard right now is making $8.5 million. So
Who is that?
And that's who?
I just closed the window. Hold on, give me 1 second.
Okay. Well, Alex is looking that up. Robbie, what do you think about the
It's
centers?
not a very great bunch. I mean, Alex Mack is the top. I mean, it's a big drop off after that.
Is Logan Mankins?
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
He's making.
Hey, look, I mean, I know, I've probably been the harshest out of anybody here on Laribas over the years. You guys know. But honestly, after he kind of worked out the kinks at the beginning of the year, I thought he wasn't a half bad center.
No.
By
he
the
wasn't.
time I think he may be our best option to bring him back. If nothing else, as a backup center. I thought he played well enough to earn a shot again, don't you?
Yeah, I think he's gonna be back for cheap. He proved to be solid depth. He may not be starter quality, but he deserves to stay on the team in my opinion.
And I can't even believe I'm saying it, but the guy did pretty well, in the second half of the year.
Yeah.
I mean, when I look at our offensive line, I'm pretty happy with most of the guys we had last year.
Yeah.
And, including all the injuries and everything.
Well, the big
They
problem
performed pretty well.
is left guard, right?
Yeah.
I mean, with Laval and Kwanju / Long, one
Right.
of those guys. I guess Laval was better in the power scheme, and he looked pretty.
If
well
he
at the
can be
beginning of the
healthy,
year.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the whole trick.
I mean, if you look at when our running game started to struggle, it was as soon as he got hurt.
Yeah. The other name that I just want to highlight, I mean, I don't think we'll sign him or anything, but Gino Gradkowski, special shout out. He's from the CAA, same conference I played in. He went to Delaware, just like Flacco did.
They've got a
against
lot
him?
of good players, Delaware.
We did play against him. He got drafted and we played him.
I mean, you weren't lined up against a center, but
Well, no. we played against him. His senior year was like I want to say my sophomore year when we played them. I want to say, but anyway, he's a 1AA player that's made a decent career for himself. He was with the Ravens for a long time, and now he's with the Falcons, and now a free agent again. So
is he related to the quarterback,
Yeah.
Gradkowski?
Yeah,
Interesting.
At all?
You don't see many quarterbacks related to offensive linemen.
Yeah, well, my little brother is a quarterback, believe it or not.
Oh yeah,
But,
I didn't.
yeah.
I always assumed he played O-line too. Just
No,
you've never
he's-
mentioned that, but
We're opposite body types, basically.
Well, think about this. If a guy like Ben Roethlisberger, if he didn't have such a great arm,
Sure.
you put another 40 pounds on him, he could be an offensive lineman.
that's
Yeah.
a
I'm
fair
serious.
point.
Yeah,
That's a fair
probably.
point.
Or maybe a blocking tight end.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, you could bulk that guy up if you had to, but he's got too good an arm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And a guy like Jamarcus Russell's fat enough to be a offensive lineman.
Yeah, or the hefty lefty, Jared Lorenzen.
Who knows what it is.
I put him at nose guard.
Oh yeah.
Just eat space.
Well, I think we're getting, I don't think we want to get into defense today. So we'll go over some free agents on defense next week. Does that sound good, guys?
Well, no.
Well, I think let's fullback. You want to do fullback?
We don't use a fullback.
Do we bring back Daryl Young?
I mean, that's really what the question becomes. I would say yes
Yeah.
for special teams, but it's a question: does he want to come back and just be a
I
special
would.
teamer?
If I were Daryl Young, I would go somewhere else.
Yeah, I would too.
Unless he's just really plugged into the community or something. I don't know. What do you?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, fullbacks. There's not a lot of.
I would
It's
want to
not
get away
decent.
from. I would want to get away from Jay Gruden if I were Daryl Young.
Yeah.
Jay Gruden and I mean, our whole system revolves around a 2 tight end or a 3 wide receiver set. So
Yeah.
And people say, why don't you just move Darrell Young to tight end?
he's 5'11".
Yeah,
You're
come
not
on,
doing
people.
that.
He's not a tight end.
No. At best, you can maybe have him be an H-back and line him behind the tight end kind of thing.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
we need a traditional tight end.
Yeah.
He's not a tight end. I mean,
no,
you're right.
no.
I mean, we need a blocking tight end more than anything.
I mean,
I think we
like
have
Young.
Niles Paul. Yeah, go ahead.
I
I think we have Niles Paul.
Yeah.
As a good all-around tight end. He and Jordan Reed make a good team.
And Derek
But
Carrier.
we need but we need a blocking tight end. Somebody who's 6'5", 270.
Yeah. Well, I think we're all in agreement. Daryl Young probably will not be with the team next year. I'll be surprised if he resigns at least. But best of luck to him
Unfortunately.
wherever he goes. I really, kind of liked the way he played for the Shanahan era at least. Okay, guys, I think we really have covered the offensive side of the ball pretty well at this point, and we should move on to some of these defensive free agents.
Good call, Alex.
Okay.
Never.
Yes, great call,
Offense.
Alex. Where do you guys want to start? You want to start in the secondary, or do we want to start with the big boys on the D line?
Let's start with the D line. That's where the biggest problem was.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly this year, obviously, we had Joe Barry as a new defensive coordinator, and everybody was kind of rah-rah over that after a while.
Capital punishment.
Right.
Yeah, and the capital punishment proved to be more of a slap on the wrist than an execution.
Right. Never give yourself a nickname before you earn it.
Yeah, I mean, because they were, bottom 2, I guess, run defenses in the NFL. They need major help. They regressed significantly along the defensive front in that regard.
Yeah.
They kind of stayed about the same in terms of sacks. We counted this out a couple episodes ago, remember?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was
we did.
about the sacks are about the same, but run stopping is just awful. So I guess I'd throw it to you, Robbie. I mean, what do we need to do on the defensive line in free agency?
I don't know. There's a big name out there. There's Malik Jackson from Denver. He's going to be a high-end target.
Yeah.
But then you have other guys out there that are, not as good as him, but they're good plug-and-play type guys. There's another guy
about-
from
What about
Go ahead.
B.J. Raji? He's a
Raji.
free agent. Yeah, he's a free agent.
To me, he's more of a big name than a big talent.
Yeah.
Really?
I
Well, that's
think
what I'm
he-
asking.
I think he's kind of fallen off from what he used to be. But we got Malik Jackson. He's a 3-4 D end. There's also from Denver. What's his name? Or no, I think he's from the Bills. Where is he?
Well,
Looking
while
at
you're
the
looking,
list here.
are you?
Oh, he's from the Jets. Damon Harrison. He's a nose guard.
Okay, Damon Harris. Okay,
lot of
he's been
people-
around for a
yeah.
long time. I feel like.
A lot of people say he's a valuable. He's not been that. He's 27 years old.
Really, he's only 27. I feel like he's been around longer than that.
Yeah.
Well, I throw, Nick Fairley is out
Yeah.
there. He's another big name. What do you think of Nick Fairley's performance? Is it more hype than anything?
I mean, he's been pretty good, but he's not like Ndamukong Suh. He's not that 1-2 punch that the Lions hoped he would be, and that's why he kind of left the Lions and went to the Rams as like a backup behind the D tackles that were already there. I mean, he'd be a good depth guy, but he's not a starter anymore.
I mean, my thing is the big question is going to be if we keep Knighton or not, and I think it's starting to look like he's not going to be here next year.
Yeah, that's.
Well, who's going to replace him, though?
Yeah,
we'd
A
have to
draft
draft
pick.
somebody. Yeah, I guess.
And
I mean,
even
are
though
we
he's
going to be
more
able to
of a
find a
two-gap nose? If we lose him, we don't have a guy that can replace that physically.
Well, that's my point. So we
think
draft
we
somebody who's
can.
going to have to draft a starter.
Yeah, I think we can replace him with the Baylor nose guard Andrew Billings.
If he falls,
He's not as heavy as Terrence Knighton, but play wise, he is a very good nose guard, and he's actually more explosive than Terrence Knighton is, and he'd add more speed up front to that D line. So I would look for him too.
Well, you brought up a good point, Robbie, because it seems to me that the way of defenses now is to go a little bit smaller and a little bit faster along the defensive front. And so a guy like Knighton who is sort of a throwback in the mold of the old school big fat guy who can't move. If we upgrade, we're going to get a guy who's a little bit more explosive. And if that's the guy from Baylor, so be it.
Yeah, and we're not talking a little smaller. I mean, Knighton was coming in. Some people were saying at like 380, weren't they?
I can't believe he was that big.
He was big. They were lying.
I mean, look, all these guys are big.
Is what,
I mean,
what we were hearing.
Hey, we could bring back Jarvis Jenkins. He's a free agent.
Well, Barry Cofield's a free agent. We could really be a blast from the past.
Sure.
Daryl Tapp's a free agent.
Okay.
And if you're looking at outside,
None
like
of these
rush
names really
type
wow
help,
me, by the way.
No, Malik Jackson's the only guy that really wows you because he was a force for Denver, especially during their Super Bowl
Right, but
run.
how much is that
Well,
the fact
isn't he
that he
gonna-
was on a team of all-stars?
in a contract year too.
Yeah, and that means he's going to be big numbers. And I just don't think Scott McLuhan is a guy who's ever going to sign any free agent to big money.
No.
I just don't think
Especially
it's going to happen.
especially a guy coming off a contract year. I think that's to me is a bit of a turnoff. Like a guy just turns it up a notch just because he's on his last year and looking to get paid.
Cough, Jason Hatcher, cough.
Yeah, I'd look for a guy that's consistently played at a high level. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really even know who Malik Jackson was until this season.
Right.
So I mean, I'd need to do a little more research on him before I consider even thinking about signing him. But
I just
you look at guys like Damon Williams. He's not an all-star, but he's been a solid nose guard for the Jets for a while. Or Damon Harrison. Sorry.
Not a sexy name. But how often are defensive linemen a sexy name?
Especially a nose guard.
Yeah.
How many of us
Well,
knew
don't
who
you
Ricky
think-
Jean-Francois was last year?
I had no idea.
Yeah, me neither. I mean, don't y'all think that given the quality of the defensive tackles, especially the inside guys in the draft, that I think McLuhan is not going to go out of his way to draft a big or to sign a big name. He may sign. I keep saying he may sign some depth,
Right.
But I think we're going to draft the big time talent that's going to be the inside guy, whether it knows 3-4 nose or 4-3 defensive tackle or what have you. I think that's going to be the big time guys in the draft.
I don't see him signing any defensive linemen, to be honest. I think we already got depth guys on the team as it is. Now we need some actual starters. You know? I think he's going to find that in the draft. There's just so many, like we've said before. There's so many that you can find. That I wouldn't be surprised if he drafts 2 defensive linemen in that draft.
Right.
Well, should we move on? Because I think we're all in agreement that the draft will be where we address D-line. Should we move back to the second level and go linebackers?
Yeah.
The Joe Kimless linebackers now, since he has moved on.
You got
Cleveland must have really paid him a lot of money.
Yeah.
I just can't imagine why anybody would want to go to the Cleveland Browns in any capacity whatsoever You know,
Well, it's
I
not.
mean, I wouldn't
don't
want to
think
be a secretary in
We
the
saw
Cleveland Browns
much
organization.
results from Joe Kim's work here, so
No, but I mean, I mean, if there's one franchise that has been consistently worse in every way than the Redskins in the past 20 years, it's Cleveland.
Yeah. Oh, I think we all agree.
They
there.
may be the only one that we can say we're better than is Cleveland.
True. So I mean, let's be specific though. Are you talking outside linebackers,
Let's do
Alex, or
both.
inside?
I'm thinking more
do
inside.
both.
I feel like outside we already have 4 guys there that, or well maybe 3 because we don't know what's going to happen with Gillette still. But
Yeah.
Well, you want to run down some names, and then you can give us your opinion on what you think, Robbie, or you have some in mind already?
No, go ahead and run through the names.
All right. Chichi Ariguzo, San Diego Chargers. I don't even know who he is. Jasper Brinkley, Giants. Zach Brown, Titans. Donald Butler, Chargers. Tank Carter, the Browns. Chris Carter, Ravens. Audie Cole, Vikings. Will Compton, who we've already talked about, is going to be back.
we just
Cable
gave him
Connor
a
with-
tender. So
Yeah. Cable Connor, Chargers. Demario Davis with the Jets. Dane Fletcher with the Patriots. Mason Foster, who's with us last year as a free agent. Gerald Freeman with the Colts. Aaron Henderson, Jets. Derek Johnson with the Chiefs. Steven Johnson with the Titans. James Michael Johnson with the Dolphins. James Laurinaitis with the Rams, who's a big name. Jamari Lattimore with the Jets. Casey Matthews, Vikings. Joe Mays with the Chargers, who's another big name. Rolando McClain with the Cowboys. Shea McClellan, Bears. Spencer Pasinger, Dolphins. Craig Robertson, Browns. Keenan Robinson, our very own Keenan Robinson, is free agent, as we know. D'Amico Ryans with the Eagles. Kelvin Shepard. Sean Spence, Anthony Spencer with the Saints. Andy Studebaker with the Colts. Danny Trevathan with the Broncos. Jason Trusnick with the Vikings. Sean Weatherspoon, Cardinals. And Dakota Watson with the Patriots. So I guess I'd ask you straight off the top of my head, the big names that kind of stuck out in my head: Zach Brown, James Laurinaitis, Joe Mays, Ronaldo McClain, D'Amico Ryans. Any of those guys candidates, you think?
Yeah, I like Zach Brown a lot. He's not like I feel like that his game could be a lot better, but his athleticism and his speed as a linebacker is undeniable. The guy is a physical freak. You can see him on the field, and he's so fast.
that's what we need, isn't it? Like
it is, and he's only 26 years old too. He's still very young, and he's still learning and still developing. I think he'd be a great pickup for us if we could get him.
And I don't think a guy like that's going to expect a tremendously big contract either.
No, not at all.
It's kind of an undervalued position in some ways these days. I feel like
You think so?
I feel like teams are so focused on the secondary at this point and defending the passing game that linebackers kind of go under the radar for some places.
I just don't think that the team. I like Will Compton, and I trust your judgment in terms of X's and O's, very much so, Robbie. And, that Will Compton and Foster are both improving good players. But I just can't imagine that Scott McGloin's going to be satisfied with that duo being the primary group. They did well for what they had last year, but, I mean, we lack talent at that position.
Yeah, and, we talked draft earlier, too, and, Darren Lee from Ohio State kind of blew them out of the water with his combine performance, ran a 4.47 40, and that's ridiculous. That's faster than majority of the receivers that ran in the draft or the combine. So he's I would be shocked if he doesn't draft one of these inside linebackers.
Yeah, but you know what? I can't imagine that. I think they're going to get. I don't think we're going to have the opportunity to draft one of those inside linebackers in the top 1 or 2 rounds. So, I think it's going to be a mid-round guy. I just think they have to grab a defensive lineman, right? First in the first one, or it may be in both, but at bare minimum in round 1 or 2, they have to draft a defensive lineman. And then I can't imagine them not going either a cornerback, safety, or running back with the other in the top.
And that's the thing, because this defensive tackle or D-line draft is so deep, the argument can be made that you should get the higher top-tier talent in different positions and draft depth later on. So you could go inside linebacker or corner with that first pick. Darren Lee, he's not projected to be like I think he's pretty much right outside of top 15. It depends. He may have jumped up people's boards because of his combine, but
He probably will. I mean, you know, I hate seeing that, but that seems to be the norm. If someone has a great combine, they do jump up boards.
that's true. But I mean, again, not all these teams have linebacker needs. You know, like these other teams that don't need defensive tackles. So guys will fall. So I don't think you have to worry about that. Like Darren Lee could very easily be there at 21st overall pick. And
so that is a realistic option then.
I think it very much is. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if he goes earlier, but I also would be, very happy with seeing him at 21 overall. I wouldn't think, oh, he fell. He should. Why did he fall? It's just, pretty decent, talented class this year, I think.
And I'd like to, if you guys don't mind, we're not a religious show, but I'd like to do a little prayer, if you guys don't mind. Is that okay with y'all?
Okay.
Okay. Dear God, please help the Washington Redskins learn that they do not need to draft another outside linebacker with their top pick. I ask you this in God's name. Amen.
I hope you don't get your hopes up, Steve, because if a guy like, what's his name? Noah Spence from Eastern Kentucky that also played at Ohio State. If a guy like him falls to 21st overall,
I'm going to lose my mind. If the Redskins draft an outside linebacker, another outside linebacker at the top of the draft, my head will explode. Okay?
Don't think of it as an outside linebacker. Like the guy is a pass
That's what
rusher.
he is. He's an outside linebacker.
Yes, but
Noah
he's a
Spence
pass
in
rusher.
particular is not the size of anything but an outside linebacker.
Yes, but he is a pass rusher. That's what his specialty is. You need edge rushers. You need guys that can get to the quarterback. And if a guy that talented like Noah Spence is there at 21 overall, don't be surprised if Scott takes him.
I'd like
saying.
to burst a myth. You can have too many pass rushers.
Yes,
At some
if you have
point,
53
you have to
of
stop
them, you have
drafting
too many.
pass rushers. Yes. So if we're going to draft a linebacker, I think the need is there's a helicopter outside my
That's all right.
outside the Hogsty Houston studios.
The THS.
THS
Houston. Anyway, no, I lost my train of thought. I completely lost my train of thought. So
Yeah, it's all right.
Well, back
we
to the
need
free
kind of
agency.
go back to free agency anyway.
Yeah, I was going to say, back to the free agency, Zach Brown, I think, is the guy everyone should be
Looking at.
keeping their eye on. Derek Johnson is a very good linebacker. He's been a solid guy for the Chiefs for a long time. He could be a veteran pickup, to be a leader for the linebackers and, whatever, but he's old.
Right.
But he's been solid. Those are the top two, in my opinion.
All right. So right now we know we have Compton coming back because he was given a tender. We know we'll have, we don't know this, but Perry Riley's still under contract. Do you guys think we'll?
Perry Riley's a candidate to get cut. Though.
Yeah,
he's got a $4
but
million
he's still under contract.
salary.
That's
Yes,
We haven't cut anybody. Though.
yeah.
No,
We haven't cut
not
anybody yet.
Not
What's
yet.
going on?
I don't know.
It's going to happen today or tomorrow because
Yeah.
just from a schedule wise, tomorrow is the first day that NFL teams can negotiate with free agents.
Right.
And then Wednesday the 9th is the day they can sign those free agents. And by the way, D-Day for Robert Griffin is the 9th, just as an
Yeah,
aside.
you think that's when he's gone?
Well, if he's on the roster on the 9th, his contract's guaranteed.
Oh, okay.
So he will be. He's going to be gone.
Yeah.
Him,
Makes sense.
him and Alfred Morris both are going to go to Houston. Book it.
You think both of them are in Houston?
Both.
I think
Alfred
Alfred Morris
Morris,
is going to go to Atlanta under. Isn't Kyle Shanahan still in Atlanta?
Yeah, that's a good choice. But they got their guy that kind of blew.
Yeah, that's
that
true.
kind of broke out this year too.
Houston's got about 0 when it comes to running.
Houston
backs
has
right
0
now.
when it
Yeah,
comes to
they-
everything.
Except for J.J.
Yeah,
Watt and DeAndre
okay, I should
Hopkins.
say on offense, not everything, but
Yeah. But anyway, free agency.
Yeah.
Inside linebackers. So we got, Zach Brown and Derek Johnson probably are 2 targets. The big name guys, I mean, we're not going to sign D'Amico Ryans. I think if anybody harbors that hope, let it go
Yeah.
because that's not going to happen.
Don't expect us to go after Laurinaitis. He's a 4-3, linebacker. He's a slow guy. He's not the kind of sideline to sideline guy, that would fit our scheme. So I wouldn't. If you're a fan, don't expect him to be, us to be kicking the tires for him.
right.
What about Joe Mays with the Chargers? What do you think of him? Not much.
He's decent. He'd be good depth, but I mean, I don't know. I like Zach Brown much better than him.
What we're talking about right now, I think, is still that my guess is we bring back Foster or my
I think we'll do both. Compton and Foster, right?
Right.
So you're saying
Thank you. Yes, I think we bring him because that's not a bad baseline to have and say, all right, at least we have these two guys.
The thing I want to know though is, what is the front office's opinion on, or what's their take on Martrell Spate? They drafted him. What do they see he can do for the team? Is he just going to be special teams?
Yeah, I thought it was very odd that he got put on IR for a concussion. That seemed to be a way to stash him for a year more than anything. Wouldn't be surprised if he was healthy by week 5. And that may, to me, if you kind of play that out logically, that may mean that they do like him, but they needed something to do with him. And so that was a way to keep him, away from other teams. And so maybe they think well of him. They just knew, they thought they weren't going to, they thought they were going to have Keenan Robinson, Perry O'Reilly were going to be starters. Right. And, maybe they just didn't think, he was going to play. So they stashed him on IR. So maybe they do think well of Spade.
I mean,
because if they didn't, they might have just cut him.
It could be.
Yeah,
and I kind of forgot he was even on the roster at this point. So thanks for reminding me.
You're not the only one. You're not the only one.
I liked Spate in training camp. He showed up a couple times with big hits and making plays in special teams.
Good speed,
but
right? Isn't he a pretty good?
Very, very passionate player. You watch his college tape. He's like Ray Lewis out there with his celebrations and jiving around, just like I mean, he's getting into it.
We need a little bit of that, especially I think on defense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I mean, it's funny you say that because I think every defense needs a guy who's not a Boy Scout.
Right.
I think you need, and I'm going to use the term thug, and I don't mean it in an ethnic way, just so y'all out there don't get mad at me, but every defense needs a thug or two. A guy who's willing to push the rules, a guy who's going to take a cheap shot every once in a while,
Like what the Packers have with Clay Matthews.
Right. Yes. A guy who's willing to do that, because I think it sets a tone on defense that you need. That doesn't mean you need to have, an army full of Albert Hainsworths stomping on
but
helmets, but you need to have a guy.
You want one or two guys who make the offense afraid of going over the middle or, targeting a certain spot.
And I don't know we have that. I mean, because Compton and Foster in the middle, they're improving, like I said, but I don't think either one of them, A, are elite talents, and B, they're not
going to hurt you.
They're not thumpers.
No.
They're tackling machines.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone on our current defensive line is
I will say Keenan
really
Robinson kind of looked like he was becoming that early on.
He was.
When he was doing suplexes on guys. But
what happened to Keenan Robinson?
Supposedly he was not,
wish I knew.
Taking to coaching very well. Wasn't that what they were saying? He was playing out of position too often and things like that?
He definitely looked exposed before he got, benched. I don't know.
He did.
He started off strong. He made a lot of good plays. There was the play where he chased down Tavon Austin against the Rams.
Yeah.
Looked like the Keenan Robinson from the year before, but then it just
fell apart.
Just fell off a cliff.
Fell off.
Yeah. Well, should we move to outside linebackers?
Sure.
We covered inside. I don't know. Do we even want to go over the list of outside linebackers?
Just give me who are the biggest names. Just
Sam Acho, Mark Barron, who was a safety that they converted to outside linebacker.
But that's not a
Dwight
3-4
Freeney.
kind of guy.
Yeah, he's a 4-3 guy. Tamba Hali, I'm sure he'll be back with the Chiefs. He's been there for a long time.
Bruce Irvin with the Seahawks, big name.
I think unless Gillette walks, we're probably not going to go after anybody.
If Gillette walks, I would not be surprised if we went after Bruce Irvin.
Okay.
I would not be surprised if we can't get something done with Gillette. Bruce Irvin would be that guy. He's from Seattle.
Right.
Scott knows him, so I would keep my eye on that.
And speaking of Gillette, if you guys haven't noticed, one, he fired his agent.
Right.
And the story goes is that the reason he fired his agent is that he did not think the agent was on board with what he wanted with regard to the Redskins. I think what Gillette wants is a high dollar one-year contract, and the Redskins want to give him a lower dollar multi-year deal. He wants to bet on himself, and the Redskins don't let him. And the agent, I think it sounds like, told him, listen, Junior, you need to take what the Redskins are doing, and he didn't like that.
Really?
But he's gone absolutely crazy on Twitter. So
Yeah,
I mean,
he's a good follow.
Yeah.
yeah, he's entertaining. He is entertaining, if nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I hope he does work it out. I don't know if he's got a new agent yet, but we'll see. I would rather
hurry.
spend some time talking about safeties if we could move to that.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Safeties.
Yeah, because I
gotta
feel like
hit corner too.
we
but,
don't
yeah.
know what's going on with Jarrett at this point.
Yeah.
Well, there's a huge list of safeties that are free agents. Do you guys have any in mind? Rather than me reading 30 names, do you guys have any in mind straight off the top of your head, or you want me to kind of hit the highlights?
Give me 1 second. I can.
All right.
I'll pull up a list myself and see.
Okay, well, I'll go. Yeah, Will Allen, big name. Chris Conti with the Bucks.
Tyvon Branch from the Chiefs.
Yeah, Quentin Demps. Tayshaun Gibson with the Browns. I don't know if I'd call him a big name, maybe.
Roman Harper, the Panthers.
Taylor Mays is a name that's been around. It kind of gets perennially overrated, maybe.
Yeah.
Our own Brandon Merriweather is a free agent again.
He's back?
Dear God, help us. Yeah. Walter Thurman is the biggest name free agent without a doubt as a safety.
He's that cover safety, free safety guy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Eric Weddle with the Chargers is a known guy. Any of those strike your fancy?
There's another one that we didn't that we missed.
Who did I miss?
What's his name?
Which team?
George Iloka from the
yeah,
Bengals.
Young guy, 26.
A lot of people, he's young, talented, makes a lot of plays for the Bengals. Not sure what his situation is going to be or how it's going to play out with him with the Bengals, but if he hits the market, I think that's a good name to
and
follow.
also a guy with the Browns, Gibson.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I read him.
Okay, you did read him.
Yeah.
All right.
In terms of safety, I like the guy we have, Deshaun Goldson.
Yeah.
I think that he added a level of professionalism and competence that has not been there. And stability may be a better word. Between him and D. Hall, I think we are in halfway decent hands.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be doing that much changes to the safety spot. I think they're going to keep, Duke Iheanacho's still going to be on the team.
Yeah.
Jarrett, when he's healthy, is still going to be, flipping between corner and safety. I mean, apparently Coach Gruden and Scott love what D. Hall's doing at safety. So I really don't see us going after anybody.
Okay.
Maybe drafting somebody, but
drafting a developmental guy to replace Hall when he retires in a couple of years.
Yeah, that's my thing is, 2 years from now, what's our situation going to be?
I would think that 2 years from now we'd have Jarrett starting at free safety. I would hope. I don't know about Strong. We'll find out. Hopefully, we'll draft someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you, Robbie. I just don't see us making a big move at that position.
Yeah, I would be shocked. I think they like the way they see it. D. Hall's been, he's kind of extended his career now by switching to safety, or at least that's what I think. Maybe that could be just one of those myths that switching to safety extends your career, but
it did for Charles Woodson.
Yeah, but the way D. Hall played when he was at safety was extremely physical. So I don't know if that's really going to extend your career at all.
Well, I think it may extend his career in that as he gets older, his athleticism is going to go a little bit, his speed and his agility and his ability to flip his hips, all that's going to go a little bit, and you don't have to do that to the same degree as a safety. And so in that respect, I think a diminished athlete who still has some of it left can be at least a free safety,
true.
At a minimum. Because Golston played up a little bit last year when Hall was in, if you guys noticed.
Yep.
And
that's where he's best. He's a in the box tackling safety. He's not been a cover guy.
The real question with Hall is whether he's going to stay healthy, considering his last 2 years.
Sure.
I mean, he's starting to get those nagging injuries that that guys get when they get older. So
the
there
things
does
that
need
don't
to be
heal
a
in your
backup plan.
30s.
Yeah, believe me, I understand. But Duke Iheanacho is the thing. Between Iheanacho and Jarrett,
Right.
I think there you have your backups.
But talk about staying
right
healthy.
there.
I mean, Iheanacho,
And Dron Johnson's still on the under contract
That's true,
too, right?
I mean, that gives us 5
still
guys
hanging on.
potentially at
Jaron
least
John-
going into camp.
Yeah.
So
we
What a
got
disappointment.
numbers.
What
Yeah.
a disappointment Johnson is.
yeah.
I think the
expect-
bigger question to me is at corner more than anything, because they're going to have to add a corner, whether it
Absolutely.
be through free agency or the draft.
Right.
They have to add a corner. And in terms of the veterans, I think this is I'll just run over some highlights again. Prince Amukamura, free agent. Our very own E.J. Biggers, good Lord. Will Blackman is a free
I'm
agent.
shocked E.J. Biggers
who's
is still in the league.
well, it doesn't mean he will be next year.
Yeah.
Just he was this year. Our very own Will Blackman, free agent. Morris Claiborne with the Cowboys is a free agent this year. The immortal Antonio Cromartie, who seems like he's been around forever. Cortland Finnegan, free agent, another big name there.
Yep.
Casey Hayward with the Packers. Janoris Jenkins, free agent. Pac-Man. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just adding in. He's talented and young,
Yeah.
but keep going.
Pac-Man Jones, free agent. Sterling Moore at the Buccaneers. Terrence Newman with the Vikings. Tracy Porter with the Bears, free agent. Josh Robinson, Vikings. Cody Sensenbaugh, Titans. Charles Tillman is probably the biggest name that's out there.
Peanut.
He's a free agent. Yeah, Peanut Tillman. That's
Greg
all the
Toller.
big names. Yeah, Greg Toller. But those are the big names.
Yeah.
Oh, and Josh Wilson.
Did I miss him?
Yeah, right
Yeah,
at the
whoops.
bottom.
Oh, yeah,
Detroit
yeah.
Lions.
We have to sign some.
Right.
I think they need to both sign a veteran depth guy and they need to draft a starter.
Well,
I think we need both.
I don't know about drafting a starter. You need to address it in the draft. I don't know
Yeah.
if we'll be in the right spot to draft a starter.
I mean, Perry Fuel, our defensive backs coach, knows Prince Amukamara very
Right.
well.
Yeah.
He kind of got him playing at a high level before he
Yeah.
got hurt. So
He did.
Now, here's my thing.
I would not be
There
surprised.
is a faction of the Redskins fan base that is in love with Will Blackman, and I don't get it.
He was competent and
Overachieved.
He overachieved
Yeah,
for a little
and-
while,
and
but
Scott McGowan
when
liked
we
him.
started to struggle, teams were targeting him like crazy.
Yeah.
Scott McGowan's a loyal guy. I could easily see them re-signing Will Blackman for another year because McGowan's a loyal guy. And if you play well, nobody's going to want Blackman as our number one corner, but maybe he's our fifth guy.
Okay, maybe as a
number
fifth guy, I
four,
can
number
tolerate
fifth
that,
guy,
but-
back of the roster guy. I can see
Help
them if
me,
they're going to
help
bring
you.
if they're going to bring a veteran in under the radar, it may be.
But I
Blackman,
feel like
think.
with Culliver, Breland, and Dunbar, we have 3 decent options on the roster right now. I'm with you that we need to add a 4th guy who can get some serious playing time because Dunbar is still coming along. But
Yeah, I was going to say, Dunbar, he's shown flashes of brilliance, but he's still very, very
yeah,
raw.
I don't want
and
him
still
ever being
figuring
more
it out.
than a nickel or anything for now. But
Well,
Well, I
he did go against guys as number 1 receivers,
Yeah.
too. I mean, he held his own. So, I mean, the potential's there, but, I don't think he's a guy we can rely on yet.
I'm not
So
ready to trust him for 16 games.
Exactly.
I think Chris Culliver's a big question mark too, and it's not really almost because of Culliver. He's a press corner, press cover corner, and that's just not what Joe Barry does. At least he didn't last year, almost at
No.
all.
Yeah.
So I think if that they're almost going to waste Chris Culliver's talent if we play him the way the corners played last year.
Well,
And if that's the case, he may not be around more than another
Yeah.
year.
So, to me, the 3 biggest names in this for us, I think the Redskins will probably look at. I mean, I mentioned Amukamara just because of the Perry Fuel connection. The other one that I really like, I mentioned earlier, Janoris Jenkins. He's young. He's only, young-ish. He's 27. But he's very talented. He's not the tall corner you're looking for, but he's been very talented and very good corner for the Rams for a good couple of years. And then another name is Jeremy Lane from the Seahawks. He is young. He's only 25. He's 6 foot 190. I mean, he's from Seattle, so Scott knows him for
Right.
sure. And he's played under a good number of guys at Seattle, so he should have a good what's this word I'm looking for? He should have a lot of experience.
And I think that if there's any fans out there that have a hope of getting Peanut Tillman on the roster, you need to give that hope up because that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
There's
Well,
no
the
way.
guy-
There's no way he's going to pay that kind of money for him.
Well, no, I don't think anybody's gonna pay good money for him. He's 35 years old now. He's old.
Yeah.
He's ancient.
He's a name, though.
True.
Just give it up. That's not going to happen.
And I'm with you on the whole. You don't get old guys. You don't get guys just because of a name anymore. That should be our philosophy.
Yeah.
What about Morris Claiborne? Does anybody like him?
He is, has the talent, but it never really came together. He's still young. He's 26, but he's a knucklehead.
Yeah, he is. But you know what? I mean, the Redskins had kind of a strong locker room last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
Believe it or not, I mean, is it so crazy to think that, the front office could take a chance on a guy who has talent like that and who thinks they can keep him from being too much of a knucklehead just because we've got a lot of we've got D'Angelo Hall there to babysit him.
Right.
they took a chance on Gillette. I mean,
Right.
Gillette is historically a knucklehead.
I think McGloin is a guy who's going to gamble on knuckleheads with talent more so than he lets on.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why I wouldn't be surprised if we draft Robert Kimdichie either.
Well, he's a little bit more than a knucklehead to me. I mean, he's a knucklehead who's inconsistent and lazy. That's why if you put the whole package together with Kimdichie, I think that's why he's not draftable to me.
Maybe. Yeah. We'll see.
Yeah.
We'll see, indeed. I think
yeah.
that covers it. We've hit all the positions now on defense, right? All right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
much.
we have.
And I
mean,
assume we
kickers,
don't want to cover
punters,
kickers and punters.
Yeah.
Our punter's going to be Tress
resolved.
Way. Yeah, our punter's going to be Tress Way. Our kicker's going to be Dustin
Right.
Hopkins.
What?
The only thing we didn't talk about was punt return, kick return.
Right.
I mean, do you think the Redskins would actually try to sign a free agent who can do that? Because we were just abysmally awful. One of the worst in the NFL at punt
I don't think
returns
we'll
last
sign
year.
somebody. I won't be shocked if we draft somebody specifically for that.
Yeah.
Well, we thought we did that with Crowder. But
Yeah.
it's still up in
Did
the
not
air.
work out.
He's not up in air to me. He's fired from that dude.
Great.
if I'm
I
the
love
coach.
him as
He
a
was
receiver.
horrible.
Not loving him as a returner.
Yeah. He was terrible.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it'll be a receiver. I'm kind of sick of using wide receivers in that role. I want to go back to using running backs. They're willing to take contact, and
Rock Cartwright's not walking through
Well,
that
I
door,
know.
Alex.
I know.
Sorry.
but a boy can
he
dream.
might. I think he would be there if they wanted him.
True.
A boy can dream.
Yeah.
Well, I think that about wraps up this week's episode. Sorry we went a little long there for all of our fans.
Oh, one real quick before you sign
Okay.
off. Peyton Manning's retiring.
Yep.
He just announced his retirement this weekend, so we certainly wish Peyton the best of luck in his retirement. And now he can feel free to buy HGH in his own name.
Yeah. HGH and Papa John's. That's what, that dipping sauce that comes with Papa John's. I think it's just liquid HGH.
And
Yeah.
garlic.
Maybe that's how he's getting the HGH. He's getting it through Papa John's garlic sauce.
Better pizza, better HGH, Papa John's.
All right. Well, I think that about does it for this episode. Yeah. Don't forget to check us out at the Hogsty for all the latest news. And we'll see you guys on the interwebs. Goodbye.
We're going to get sued by Peyton Manning.